405, 406, 407, 408. 5 minutes down, 10 minutes left.
Hey Jeremiah, what are you doing?
Oh, what's up, Ben? Just training abs. Probably about 45 minutes in today. I've done 3,000 crunches. About minute 25 on my plank right here. I'm just trying to lose the fat that I gained around my abdomen this season. The holidays really got to me.
I don't think it works like that.
Then why would I be doing all of these crunches? Yes, it does.
No it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Still doesn't.
Yes.
No. Hi, I'm Dr. Ben Quist.
And I'm fitness expert Jeremiah Kruger.
And today we're here to talk to you about why spot reduction does not work. And also, hopefully, we're going to give you guys some strategies for the holidays to maintain your weight or actually even lose some weight during the holiday season. So Jeremiah, why does spot reduction not work for fat loss?
So this is a really good question. Oftentimes as trainers, we'll have our clients come in and ask, hey, how can I lose the fat I have on the back of my arm or around my waistline or the inner thighs or even the outer thighs? Clients will ask us, what exercises can I do to lose fat from these areas? And it doesn't really work like that. Typically when we train to lose fat or eat to lose fat or essentially live to lose fat, it comes off as a unit. It doesn't come off from certain areas. We might retain fat in certain areas longer than others, but in general, it comes off pretty evenly across your entire body. When you work a certain area, ultimately you're training that muscle. So there is some value in doing that because once the fat eventually comes off, you'll have some nice looking muscle there. So there's still value in training specific areas, but don't think that if I do more exercises for this area, the fat's gonna come off this area. It does not work like that.
One example that I've seen that I think is very compelling for why spot reduction does not work is in an article I read on professional tennis players. You would think that their arm that they use to hit the ball with would be significantly lower in body fat than the arm that they don't use, right? Because they're using that arm a ton. But when they did skin folds on several professional tennis athletes, the skin folds were exactly the same left to right on their arms. So again, illustrating the point that no matter how much you use that, it's not that you're burning fat off of a specific area. Like Jeremiah said, it comes off how your body naturally is going to lose it. So if spot reduction doesn't work, what actually does? What can we give to this audience as far as what they need to do for the holidays?
We got 5 things. Stay tuned.
Tip number 1, deflour your diet. So what does that mean? So anytime you mill a grain or rice or anything, you turn it into a flour format, a soybean, I don't care, whatever kind of flour, they make flour out of nuts now, almond flour. Anytime you mill that grain, you are making something that is highly processed. You are destroying the cell wall of the plant when you mill the product. And what happens when you do that is when you intake the flour, it has a high glycemic index, which is going to raise your blood sugar relatively quickly, which is a really bad thing for fat loss, weight loss, or weight maintenance during the holidays. So getting rid of that flour is a really good thing. And the other kind of nice thing is if you deflour your diet, you're going to get rid of a lot of high calorie products that you typically might be consuming, like pretzels, like chips, like muffins, like whole wheat pasta. And it doesn't matter whether it's whole wheat or not, it's still flour. Anything that has flour in the ingredient list, you would be removing that product from your eating patterns. And even taking just this one habit and kind of ingraining it into your eating process will make really, really big dividends for your health. One last thing on deflouring, when you have that intact cell wall, so let's say you're eating the plant where you haven't milled it, it typically gets a lot farther down into your digestive tract before it's fully digested, which allows your gut microbiome, all those little guys living down there, to get their chance to eat that wonderful plant food as well, making you even healthier. So give this one a try.
All right, so this next tip is ridiculously important. I want to talk about added sugars and avoiding them. Now, I want to preface that there's a difference between added sugars and the sugars you might find in like a blueberry or other kinds of fruit. All of those sugars are good to have. You do want to be mindful of them, but you don't necessarily need to avoid them. Added sugars, however, avoid them. Avoid them like the plague. It is not good for your body. It is not good for health. It is not good for fat loss. There's over 100 different kinds of added sugars, so I'm going to make it simple for you. If you look on the nutrition facts on the back of your food, you'll see carbohydrates. Below that is dietary fibers. Below that is total sugars. And the next section below is added sugars. You want that number to say 0 every single time. Avoid those added sugars. So obviously from a fat loss perspective or weight management perspective, we want to avoid these added sugars. But from a health perspective, we want to avoid things like diabetes or heart disease. Ultimately, avoiding added sugars is one of the most powerful strategies to live a long and healthy life. So here's a bonus tip. If you really have a sweet tooth and you still want to get something sweet in your diet, try this natural alternative called allulose. We did do a video on this previously if you want to learn a little bit more in detail why allulose is better than your normal added sugar.
Tip number 3, and this one is really near and dear to my heart. I love this tip. It is to upscale your whole food plant-based consumption. So when you look at the research from the American Dietetics Association, they've looked at what things have people done that have caused them to be very successful with weight loss over a long period of time. And the number one thing that correlated with successful weight loss over a long period of time was people's consumption of non-starchy vegetables. The only strategy that was slightly more valuable was consumption of non-starchy vegetables with exercise. So exercise kind of upscales that. So what is a whole food plant-based item? That just means a plant that has not been processed. So that would be things like a blueberry. That would be things like an almond. That would be things like broccoli. And when you think about the plants, obviously, we're going to be trying to get the non-starchy plants. So those would just be plants that have less carbohydrate. Whenever you hear that comment of like, don't eat starchy vegetables, like what does that even really mean? It just means that they're higher in carbohydrate amount. So vegetables that are in that kind of lower category, which I think of vegetables as the most important food you can possibly be eating, would be anything in the leafy green family, a broccoli, a Brussels sprout, cauliflower, beets, carrots, mushrooms, onions, anything, black olives. There's just so many choices to pick from. And also if you're someone who isn't really a vegetable eater and you decide to incorporate this habit in, what I would recommend is that you try to eat vegetables with every single meal or whole food plant-based foods with every single meal. So that could be something from the fruit family, could be from the seed family, nut family, anything of that as well. But incorporating those foods in, and when you aren't going to be eating flour and you aren't going to be eating sugar anymore, no added sugars, right? You got to replace it with something. So why don't you replace it with something that is going to upscale your entire health as well as help you maintain a really nice trim waist this holiday season?
All right, this next tip is very near and dear to my heart. It is muscle. Build some muscle. Focus on resistance training over the holidays. Muscle mass has a really big impact on weight management from a metabolism perspective and a whole bunch of other deeper, more important things as well. But resistance training is going to be a really big resistor for fat gain over the holidays. So I encourage you, lift some weights, spend some time stretching, lengthen your muscles, strengthen your muscles. I'm not saying avoid cardio, that still has a ton of benefit as well, but during this holiday season, put a special emphasis on some resistance training. Most people typically do get enough protein, but if you're someone who might be lacking it, maybe this is something you gotta up just a little bit, especially if your focus is building muscle. So let's tie this back into what we talked about earlier with spot fat reduction and how that doesn't really work. Is the larger movement patterns that recruit a lot of muscle, because if you have more muscle, your metabolism goes up, you can burn fat a little bit faster. Whereas if I'm doing just tricep extensions, trying to lose fat right here, sure, I might be building muscle, but my metabolism isn't really going to be affected all that much. So for example, I might do more deadlift related exercises which require your entire backside of your body, or a big squat, or a big push type movement, or a big pull type movement. Movements and exercises that use a lot of muscles to build a lot more muscle can help you burn off more fat, rather than focusing on these isolation type exercises like a tricep extension or leg adduction focusing on the inner thigh. I might do a squat or a sumo deadlift, something like that, to get a whole lot more muscle involved.
Okay, are you guys ready for our final tip? So we're gonna get off our bandwagon about eating unprocessed foods and getting rid of sugar and all that other good stuff. The final tip is, I think of it kind of like a secret weapon, and that is to consume some vinegar, okay? And I know that sounds weird to many people, like that's just strange. What, I'm gonna consume some vinegar and then it's going to potentially create some fat loss. But vinegar has actually been studied in several different placebo-controlled studies and been shown to really have a significant effect on creating fat loss, to the tune of, in several of the studies that I have read, people losing up to 5 pounds in a single month from taking in 2 tablespoons of vinegar. The vinegar that I typically use is apple cider vinegar, and if I have a period of time where I know I'm going to be eating a little bit more like the holidays, I will put this tip into play, which I'm going to be doing it in my own life here throughout the Thanksgiving to Christmas holiday. But mixing in 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar into water and then consuming that, you could either divide it up, 1 tablespoon in water before one of your meals of the day and another tablespoon of water before a different meal of the day, or some people will do it after dinner at night, mixing it in. It really doesn't seem to matter that much when you intake it, but there's many different thought processes of when to do that. The main thing is to get those 2 tablespoons in. Again, you have to dilute it in water. It is an acidic substance, so if you try to shoot that straight, you can damage your esophagus. So no one wants to damage the esophagus. So dilute that with water. There are also several products on Amazon that you can purchase that have apple cider vinegar in them. Or you can even do something like have a giant salad and have oil and vinegar as your dressing. Then you take 2 of the different things we're talking about. You get your whole food plants, then it doesn't have any added sugars in it, nothing in it is processed with flour, and you're putting the vinegar in it. And maybe while you're eating that salad, you can then start to pump some weights, but not just the small ones. Don't focus on the small ones. You could do some squats. You're squatting, you're coming up, you're eating your salad as you go through. That's wrapping all the tips together into one. If anyone could send me a video of them doing that, I'd be eternally thankful. All right. Thank you guys for watching. We are going to be doing a series of different fat loss tips or weight maintenance tips throughout the month of December. So I think we have 2 more videos planned, right, Jeremiah?
Yeah.
So look forward to those.
Last piece of advice with this. You don't have to do it perfectly. You don't have to cut out everything. Sure, you would benefit, but if you just had less, you probably would see progress, or at least maybe you could minimize the amount of fat you might have gained if you had done nothing.
That's a very good point. And building on that, you could even just take one of these tips and implement it, and you will see some results. So happy holidays, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.